Pigs are more equal. Hello, everybody. This is Charming Man 93 or Charming Pig 98 or whatever you want to call me today. And with me is, well, it's Shrek. Well, it's not actually Shrek. It's Jordan at the screen, who we've known each other for a while. I think we first met through Trey of Triforia, who is also known as Trey of Prog. He's a Yes fan. Wait, what is his favorite prog band?
I do not know. I know that I've seen Haken live with him, and they're quite a good band. I don't know if they're his favourite though.
I like Genesis. They're my favorite.
Ugh.
I mean,
I'm
Peter
not going to
Gabriel,
rehash that
Genesis.
argument.
Peter Gabriel, obviously.
Say again?
Anyway, Peter Gabriel.
Oh, let's stop that. Oh, my headphones fell out. Anyway, so Jordan is an MRA. He is a good friend of mine, if you don't mind me saying.
Thank you.
And I watch his videos. I've been binge watching you recently because I didn't know you actually made videos until recently. Then I saw you. I was like, watching. So, go on.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I don't actually produce videos that often because I did go on a bit of a 9-month dry spell. Simply because I didn't have time because of work and I couldn't really get myself into it. And then a couple of days ago, I thought to myself, do you know what? Hell with it, I'm going to jump straight on in and see what I can do. And yeah, I've just been pushing myself making videos. I also occasionally now still put a few articles on my site. Not that I'm shilling my site.
Shill it away. I've got your channel in the description of this of the stream. If you want the chat, I can send it to you.
Hang on, I think I've got the tab open for the live stream as well. But yeah, no, yeah, I also blog at my screen. I blog on my blog, thescreen.me. Half of it is just shit posting. Sometimes I do sort of like analysis of data and research. So like the National Intimate Partner Sexual Violence Survey, I recently went through that again, and the Adult Psychiatric Morbidity Survey went through that one.
What I want to know is, I think we need to explain some of these things to some of the people on my channel. Some of them are MRAs, some of them are egalitarians, some of them aren't any at all. So some might not know what they are. So could you explain at least one of them? It's up to you which one you want to start with.
I'll briefly explain both. So the National Intimate Partner Sexual Violence Survey was a telephone survey of about 45,000 participants by the Center for Disease Control in the US, where they wanted to look at sexual violence in relationships, in intimate partner relationships. So they looked at, not saying sexual violence, a bit of a misnomer, because they also looked at domestic violence and stalking as well. But they wanted to see what sort of violence was going on. And so they did the phone calls back in 2010 to 2012. And obviously, with having 45,000 participants, it's taken so long for the data to come out. And they keep doing it in installments, like different areas they've researched. And so I analyzed one of their recent batches. And then the Adult Psychiatric Morbidity Survey is an NHS survey of 10,000 private households to understand, or to get like a snapshot picture of mental health in the UK. And that was very interesting to look into, especially in regards of male suicide and mental health. Brought up some very interesting data, which, not that I'm going to show on my site again, it is on my site if anybody wants to read it.
Chill away, my friend, chill away.
But it is, yeah. So a lot of people seem to have the argument that more men are dying from male suicide, for example, because they are inherently more violent and are attempting suicide more, because more men are trying to kill themselves, therefore more men are actually dying. But I found that more women were attempting suicide, so much so that on average, because men choose much more violent methods or much more lethal methods, 1 in 47 male suicide attempts will be fatal, as opposed to 1 in 196 female suicide attempts, despite the fact that more women are attempting it.
Do you reckon that's because... Yeah, do you reckon that's because with the women it's more of a cry for help, while for the men they just want to end it?
I wouldn't say it's a cry for help. I would say it's because their methods are different. And the way I have explained it to people is, it's going to sound quite cruel. But I've got to be frank, when women attempt suicide, they just take a handful of pills, drink a bottle of red, and cry themselves to sleep. That type of suicide, overdosing, isn't instantaneous. If you had to take a whole packet of paracetamol, it doesn't kill you overnight. It could take several days. Or if you take a box of sleeping pills, sometimes it doesn't do it overnight. Depending how many you take, it could take a while. So you are more likely to be found. Whereas men, they're more likely to hang themselves. So if you hang yourself, you're dead in like 10 to 15 minutes. So that doesn't leave a big window to be found, because men do choose more lethal methods. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a cry for help, because whilst women do seek help more often than men, the difference isn't actually that great.
So yeah, because go on. Sorry, do you want to finish your point?
No, yeah,
I was just going
to say it's not necessarily always a cry for help when women do it.
Because I was going to say that you're right about more lethal methods. Like 2 people in my family, they killed themselves, both men. One with carbon monoxide poisoning, and the other hung himself. Yeah. So they do choose more lethal methods. And what's interesting is the other one was 75. He was my granddad. I took a break. That was about a year ago now, 2 years ago. Can't remember now. Jesus, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. And he actually sorted out his funeral and all his plans and everything before he did it. It's crazy.
Oh, well, maybe I can't imagine what the motivations was, but what I can
Nobody knows. We can hazard a guess.
But one thing that I found is, if you look at the data on the Office of National Statistics, the older generation attempting suicide isn't actually uncommon, especially for men, because the curve at its highest for those in their mid-40s, because it peaks down, it drops back down again, but then from like 70 onwards, it does start rapidly climbing, which is a bit peculiar. Because I don't think the same happens for women, if memory serves.
Exactly. So your blog, is that like an extension to your YouTube channel? Is it the blog that you're most active on, or is it the YouTube channel that you're most active on?
It's my blog that I'm most active on, when I can get the chance, that is, because I've recently been doing a lot more on the ground, work rather than online work. But yeah, you're more likely to catch me on my blog than on my YouTube.
Do you have anybody else who writes for you, or is it just you?
Me on my own. I'm a lone warrior.
Like Dave Fitzgerald, right?
Whoa,
and his
no,
boobs.
Whoa, no. Look, they're
No,
small. They're not developed yet. Okay, it's just a little bit.
Eventually, all roads will lead to Jordan at the screen, just like all roads lead to man boobs.
Oh Jesus Christ! I don't want to think about that. At least there'll be something fun to play with, whilst I'm sitting on my computer.
Exactly.
Something to keep me motivated.
Well, do you reckon they make him cry? For those of you who don't know, Man Boobs Futrell, David Futrell is a well-known male feminist who just writes hit pieces on anybody who he doesn't like, really. He's done it on Sargon, which I think Dick Coughlin got him to do, which I remember thinking was very hypocritical of Dick, because he'd gone through some slander and hit pieces himself, which I helped him with. Should have bloody DM'd him about that, because I did actually, for a while, have a Skype connection with him, but then I lost my main account and that's gone. I should have bloody told him, like, this is hypocritical, right? It's because of the whole, someone in the EDL said, watch Sargon of Akkad, and everyone was like, oh, Sargon's now part of the EDL, even though it was one EDL guy just liked Sargon and shielded him.
Guilt by association. If somebody, I disagree with, promotes you or speaks of you, then yeah, you're one and the same.
I mean, I'm sure there's people who I don't agree with at all who are shilling me right now, and I wouldn't know.
Well, guilt by association is a wonderful thing, and people seem to accept it.
It is. But what I'm surprised is it's weird. He seems to be just a source of everything, even though he doesn't seem to be that big, does he, David Futrell? He just doesn't seem to be that big.
Yeah, well, in physical size he is, but I've never actually seen much of him from his site. I've seen the odd piece here and then. And did he write an article for like The Guardian or somewhere? Or he did write an article for someone mainstream.
I think it might have been The Guardian.
Yeah, talk about Gamergate and harassment and how people are getting abused and how he's fighting the good fight on his website. And it's like, cool, okay.
Which, by the way, as we know, the opposite was the case. It was the SJWs that were doing all the harassment, plus the the trolls who came in to take advantage of it. And if Gamergate harassed anybody, if you can call it harassment, it would have been themselves, because there was a lot of infighting, a few hit pieces here and there by different people on their own side because they disagreed on what the goal should be. Should it be ethics? Should it be ethics plus whatever? And also some personal grievances. Lots of accusations of tone policing, stuff like that. And really, it's just that. If you could say that they harass anybody, it's themselves. And even then, that's just pushing the definition. And I'm not saying that they did, because it wasn't harassment. It was just tomfoolery. It was
a bit of bickering.
Idiocy. Yeah, it was bickering. Although some people took it way too far, and eventually, even after it ended, it became just stupid.
It's become a bit. It
got a little bit. Yeah, and some of the people just hit real new lows. Just real new lows. Like a woman killed themselves in the movement for whatever reason, and people trolled. People linked to the Ralph retort directly, and he defended them, as did somebody called Shannon, Liberal Lunacy. Although she's since retracted that, I think, at least to me. And
wait, what happened with the Ralph retort?
Oh, he just defended his mates who were trolling the morning fiance of that girl. It's called grave standing or something like that. Yeah, they tried to say that he was using it. At first, I think they just trolled him, and then some other two people that they didn't like spread the news to other people because they had permission, but nobody knew at the time that they had permission. And they tried to say, "Oh, they're using this to take advantage of her death for like popularity," which was not the case. And they continued to troll and be nasty. And he was going to leave the internet anyway, but that probably precipitated him to take a break quicker. It was just a really low point for them. But I think by this point, GG was dead. But that's what the bickering led up to, in my opinion. But anyway, that's besides the point. It's about you. This happens. So anyway, what's the main issues for you as an MRA? What motivates you to do the things you do on the ground and on the internet?
Well, there was, to start with, the issues themselves, such as fathers' rights and male genital mutilation and male suicide. But the more I'm working in the men's movement and the more I'm offering what help I can give, the more I'm realizing that what we're doing is we are treating symptoms and not the cause. Because one of the things that feminists like to say is MRAs act like as if, male suicide is caused by the same thing that causes male genital mutilation, and it's also associated with domestic abuse, and it's also associated with boys' poor education in school, and MRAs should just treat them all like separate issues. And I think it's been said on Spiked a few times. I think Brendan O'Neill said that as well. And for a little while, I kind of did agree with them that maybe they are all separate issues and they're not in any way connected. But then I started looking further and further into, for me, what is now the driving issue, which is the human gender empathy gap. Gynocentrism, the disposable male, but overall the human gender empathy gap. And we can't combat the human gender empathy gap, unfortunately, because we are facing up against at least 50,000 years.
Just so people know, could you explain the gender empathy gap? Because there's some people who might not know. I've not really explained it on my channel.
Okay, well, the human gender empathy gap basically means that we care more for the plights and issues of women than we do for men, that we have greater feelings for women than men. This was shown wonderfully in the Mankind Initiative video, Violence is Violence. I dare say most people have already seen it, which is the video where they had a couple walking in a busy London area, and the guy starts beating up on his girlfriend. They have an argument. He starts pushing her around and physically abusing her. And loads of members of the public jumped in. They didn't realize they were being filmed. They all jumped in to defend her, saying, "Oh, you're doing this wrong. We're going to call the cops." And then he came back later, did it again, but this time the girl beats up on the guy, and people just didn't bother. Some people started laughing. Some people started filming it. Ultimately, nothing, because they just did not care it happened to a guy. And human gender empathy gap has actually been proven. They've done empathy tests, because we can measure empathy in different forms in where it manifests. And so we've been able to use these scales, these empathy scales, on people, but then gender them to see how we feel empathy for men and for women. And it does show that we feel more empathy for women than we do for men. And the worst culprits, funny enough, are men themselves. Men feel considerably more empathy towards women than they do for men. And that's where the biggest gap lies.
I think that's because white knighting is a thing, and also it's important to, from an evolutionary psychology standpoint, to protect the main people who can provide the future offspring. Really, the ones who carry the babies and gestate the babies and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, that's certainly a very big influencer in the
and also
human gender empathy
maybe
gap,
it's because they just like women, isn't it?
It's also that, but you'd then assume that maybe women would also like men, and so they should also have, similar empathy. And their gap is smaller, to be fair on them. But no, you saying about women being able to reproduce, that was certainly a turning point, or an effect, or a factor in the gender empathy gap, because some researchers would suggest that the gender empathy gap started as soon as the male sex started, that as soon as the Y chromosome came into effect, as soon as we split into male and female, and as soon as anisogamy sex, which is the requirement of men and women to procreate, to have young, as soon as anisogamy sex started, that's when it started. That's when the human gender empathy gap, the ball started rolling.
So really, it
I kind of
predates humanity, right?
Yes, because the human gender empathy gap has also been seen in other creatures, so we should just really call it the gender empathy gap, such as bonobo monkeys, because we know that the empathy paths in our brain are also the same areas in the brain where yawn contagion comes from. So as you probably know, if you see someone yawning, chances are you're going to yawn as well. But you're more likely to yawn if the person who you witness yawning is someone that is emotionally close to you. It doesn't necessarily matter on how physically far you are from them. If you feel like a close emotional bond with them and then you see them yawn, you're more likely to yawn. And so one thing that was noticed in an experiment was with bonobo monkeys, when a female yawned, the people around them were more likely to yawn than if it was a male who yawned. So they could realize that the same parts in the brain were wired in the same way to us, causing this empathy gap. So yeah, it does seem to exist across species. But for me, what really drives the empathy gap is, as you said, with the reproductive hub, because it takes so long for our young to gestate, because it takes so long for them to physically mature and develop until they can reproduce themselves, it places a lot of burden on a caregiver, someone to raise these young. And so naturally that fell to the women. Their bodies are built for reproduction. They have a uterus, they have the mammary glands that work, they can feed, they do the caring, they're better at empathy, they have a closer connection to the children. So naturally the job fell to them, just as the job of resource provision fell to us. And so that places a lot of biological value on the women, which is understandable why men, historically white knighted as we call it, or were gynocentric, because the very survival of a species or of an organism, especially for us, where it takes so long to raise our young, it's orientated around the fact that we need these women to survive. Because if they were wiped out, well, good luck, bye-bye.
Go on.
Or, I was going to say, not necessarily if all they're wiped out, because the same would happen for men. If you wiped all the men, then the civilization's gone. But if the number got too small, then you wouldn't survive.
So do you think there's any way to solve it, or to at least mitigate the effects?
Getting rid of the human gender empathy gap, no, because we will never be able to get rid of the biological value of women, except for maybe in the cases of if we have artificial wombs. And hang on one second, thank you.
Oh, that was nice.
That was. I just got to give it some toasties. No, so what's the question? I got distracted by food.
Can we mitigate it or solve it completely?
Yeah, not the human gender empathy gap, because it is biologically ingrained into us. It will be impacted quite heavily by these artificial wombs that have now been created. They've managed to gestate up to birth a lamb, I believe they managed to grow in one of these artificial wombs. And the researchers believe that maybe in the next 5 or so years, we can start using them with people. And the fact that we can almost create eggs without the need for a female. We can do it from bone marrow nearly. Says that we will soon biologically make the need of a mother obsolete. And it's also the same for fathers. We can create spermatozoa cells out of bone marrow as well. So technically the need for either males or females when it comes to producing children won't be there. That need will be gone, because then we can do it all in a lab. We can do it in a dish, put them in a little bag, and they'll develop there.
Yeah, it's becoming a bit Brave New World Gattaca-like, isn't it? A little bit.
It is. And if you especially look over at Japan and how their birth rate is plummeted and how the men and the women aren't procreating, and we're starting to see a similar effect over here, I think that the gender empathy gap will just split both the sexes. And I mean, gender relations are at the worst they've been for hundreds of years, but I think it can only get worse if we're given the ability to not need each other.
That's my worry. We do need each other.
We do, yes.
We do need each other,
because men and women go together wonderfully.
I think the fact that we know about this empathy gap, that it does exist and that we're conscious of it, I think that evolutionarily it could change if things go in the right way, if you know what I mean. Like, we know it exists, we're aware of it, we know what we need to do about it, we know we've researched the effects. I mean, if by some miracle relations improve, and the fact that we no longer really need to protect each other the way that we used to, because now we live in big cities and the only problems we have to face are other humans, not wild animals. And even then, other human beings aren't going to kill us all either. I think it could decrease if the solutions to our problems are used, but I just don't think that's going to happen, is it? I think it could if things go absolutely rosy and we solve out all the imbalances and the inequalities, but probably won't happen that way, because evolution's a strange thing. What if a gender empathy gap could in theory be eradicated in hundreds of thousands of years of evolution? We don't know that, do we?
Well, I don't think we're necessarily looking at a timescale of hundreds of thousands of years.
Millions, maybe.
No, I'm thinking shorter, maybe even tens of thousands of years. But if it is to go that way, we will have to overcome the great big mountain that is already in front of us. And that's what I'm struggling with. The fact that we can so openly and happily denigrate men, the fact that violence against men is a laughing matter, the fact that nobody really cares about men. Boko Haram, for example, is the perfect shining example. 10,000 boys murdered, but 300 girls get kidnapped, and the whole world goes batshit insane. There are so many cases where Boko Haram went to the schools, let the girls go, and then locked the boys in buildings and burnt them down, and nobody cared. It was because Boko Haram realized that we're so gynocentric over here. That's why they then kidnapped the girls, to get attention. And we played right into their hands. And so if the fact that they can mutilate, murder, burn, and kill thousands of boys, and we not give a shit, but then a couple of hundred girls get kidnapped, and we go insane, an international campaign to bring back our girls, that for me epitomizes the fact that we just don't care about men.
They don't care at all.
No, of course not.
Even men don't care about men.
No,
anyway, I need to go get my toasties or whatever it is now. So you keep talking, keep getting the people's attention, and I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. So time for a bit of a monologue. I'll carry on with what I was talking about with the human gender empathy gap. What else also gets to me is how passive and blasé we have become to this empathy gap that we are all sort of acutely aware of, but let slide by. Things such as the Istanbul Convention, which essentially legislates patriarchal theory that says women have been the victims of oppression at the hands of men. For hundreds of years, the historical unequal balances of power have always victimized women and put men on top. And now that's getting written into law. And despite Philip Davis's heroic attempts to battle against this, he was jeered at in court. And everyone I've spoken to about it who's aware of the Istanbul Convention, except for MRAs, they've all supported it. MPs who we've spoken to and raised these concerns with well, they call us sexist bigots. How dare us stand in the way of progress for women? You know, this bill is supposed to, you know, give women extra protections from domestic violence. Who cares about the fact that, you know, up to 40%, maybe even 50% of victims of domestic violence are men? Well, they don't need any special laws. Fuck them. Who cares that barely 2% of domestic violence funding goes to men? Fuck it. Who cares? They don't matter. When you look at the fact that Women's Aid gets approximately 300 million a year in money, including all the federations and all the different refuges, and they get about 300 million a year, 2/3 of which goes on staff wages, by the way, so it's not actually going to the victims. And yet still they're demanding more. Still they stormed the gates at the suffragette premiere because they feared their funding was going to get cut because they won't open their doors to men. But then you look at the male refugees, again, getting barely 2% of that altogether. And every time we've tried to apply for government funding, every time we want money, I'm told no, go join Women's Aid. You know, they're the people for the job. They're not the people for the job, but we're told they are. If you then look at universities, universities are great because they're absolutely rife with this sort of neo-Marxist. Oh, hello. I was just saying
Continue with the universities.
Yeah, I was just about to start saying how universities are rife with this neo-Marxist gender. God, all the words have just run away from my head. Ideology where they see men as the oppressors and, you know, women as the proletariat and whatever, and how you can't question this. You can't say we want a men's group like with Will Stiles down in the University of Plymouth. He's trying to create a men's forum, only to have it pretty much shut down at every opportunity because men getting together and having a forum is dangerous and violent for women. Apparently,
for some reason.
For some reason, but the reverse is obviously not true. Women getting together is that's never dangerous and violent for men. No, of course not. Why would it be?
Empowering.
Violent. Yeah, it's empowering. Women can never be violent. Of course not.
I mean, it's not like lesbian relationships are the worst when it comes to domestic violence, but hey, you know, inconvenient.
In all my life, unfortunately, I fall under the LGBT community, so I know quite a lot. But in all my life, every single lesbian I've come across has been involved in some sort of domestic or sexual violence with another lesbian. Every single one of them.
Really?
Every single one of them.
Every single one?
Every single one. Either they've been a victim of it or they've perpetrated it. And most of them don't even know it's wrong. So,
really?
So I can think of one couple right now where their relationship is fucking yo-yo. 1 minute, they're like, I love you, I love you, I love you. Oh, cuddle kisses, you're the best, I love you so much. You're my world, you're my everything. And the next minute, they're punching the shit out of each other. And it's fucking barbaric. But then, you know, the next minute, it's like, oh, I love you, I love you. And you do not want to be them when they've synchronized. Fucking hell, that's...
Oh, no, don't start.
But yeah, and still, despite the rates of domestic violence in lesbian relationships, they don't bother considering it. In fact, they never seem to consider X on X crime when it's one demographic doing it to another demographic. The only time they ever do care when it's the same demographics is when it's white men. When white men hurt other white men, it's like, oh, here it is, patriarchy proving that it's harmful to men. It's like, that's the only time.
So,
the only time.
What I want to know is it different with bi women, with other bi women, or is that lobbed in with lesbian relationships? Because it's not quite the same, is it?
Well, the statistics for bi women, if I can remember, they have the highest rates of sexual violence. It's almost double. But when it comes to domestic violence, I can't actually remember. So I'm going to have to pass on this one. I do apologize for my failings.
It's all right. If you don't mind me asking, where do you lie on the whole spectrum, quote unquote?
I'm a self-aware bisexual, which means I'm greedy. Yeah,
self-aware.
Yeah, I fucking hate the bisexual community. If you're bisexual and you're watching this, chances are I fucking hate you, unless if you're self-aware, because
I think I have quite a few actually.
Oh well, then I've just
I might
control with them.
Nah, they'll understand you. I think they'd hate you too.
Probably, at least it's reciprocated. But no, it's because I found so many bisexuals to be so fucking jumped up and pretentious. And the event that cemented this for me was there's an event in Wales called BiCon. A former, bi convention. And a former partner of mine, he went over, and I wasn't available to go. I wanted to go because I knew how much it'd piss him off. But he went over and he mentioned my status to them. He said, "Oh, you know, I'm dating this guy at the moment, and he identifies as greedy. What do you think of this?" And bearing in mind, this lady says this whilst standing on a great big sign saying, Bicon, we're here for you, and all these posters saying about inclusivity and come join us. She then said, oh, you need to tell him that he doesn't represent us and his voices are exactly his own. And I'm like, okay, so you can tell me that I'm one on my own, but you can represent the whole fucking community. Piss off.
Yeah, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. So, and I found with a lot of bisexuals,
So
sorry, yes.
Go on, carry on. Sorry.
I'm quite loquacious, I will admit. But I have found with a lot of bisexuals, when I tell them I'm greedy, which basically means, I'm a bisexual who's self-aware, they get so pissed off. And it's like, don't be offended, join me. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with the term greedy. They get so butthurt about it, like it's the worst, most offensive word you can ever say about a bisexual. There's nothing wrong with being greedy. If you go to a buffet and you look at all the food, you don't just limit yourself to the cheese and ham sandwiches. You go, fuck, I want everything. I want my lovely pineapple on pizza, and I want strawberries and cream.
Oh, pineapple on pizza. Oh, controversial.
It's God tier. If you don't like pineapple on pizza, fuck off. Okay, pineapple pizza is
So what's an unself-aware bi person then?
Somebody who identifies as bisexual.
Because
if you're bisexual,
are they not greedy, or are they greedy?
No, they are greedy. Yeah. They're just too insecure to admit it, quite frankly. Your dislike bias.
But then again, they are.
They are greedy, yes. What's wrong with accepting it? There's nothing wrong. The LGBT community is supposed to be, liberating. It's supposed to, be offering you all these opportunities and standing up for yourself and accepting you for who you are. But then they go, oh, but no, we can't say we're greedy because that's wrong and it's hurtful. It's backward. It's like,
you see, I've met a few men who are bi, but they don't. I've never seen them with other guys. It's weird. They are bi. They say it. They are, but they don't. Maybe it's a preference. They always seem to be with women. It's like, I don't know. Is that a thing with some guys who are bi? I don't know. Always wondered.
The thing is, with bisexual guys, chances are they don't look gay. So when they're with guys they're dating, you won't know they're bisexual guys dating each other.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, they don't tend to look it. No.
Yeah. So you just look at them and just think they're two mates hanging out. When actually they could be, doing each other. Well, obviously not out in public, but behind closed doors they could be doing each other. You just wouldn't know.
Just that the guys that I knew. Okay, one person I knew did get into some drama with another guy, but the other one, never seen him with another guy, or even he didn't even tell me about stuff like that. He just mostly with girlfriends and stuff. So I guess he was his preference was ladies. I don't know, just interesting. And with the girls that I knew, they were with everybody. You could always see it.
Yeah, women being able to go around and be with other women and have these relations, have their girlfriends, it's not got the same social stigma as guys also having guy friends or boyfriends or whatever, which I don't seem to get, because one thing I can tell you is gay men give the best head. And guys love head. First, they love the fucking silence, and two, it feels great. And so if you can get head but even better, why are we applying a social stigma to it? And also, if the ancient Spartans had the idea that if you had a lover in your ranks, then you would fight more passionately to help defend him. That they saw this, male homosexuality as a higher form of masculinity.
I was actually going to mention the Greeks.
The Greeks and the Spartans. There's nothing wrong with it. These guys doing guy things and fucking each other. It's like that scene.
There's no reason.
Yeah, it's like that scene in Family Guy, and Stewie's sitting there in his little high chair next to Brian, and he says, why can't guys just, do what they do with girls, but then do it with other guys instead? And then Brian's like, that's called being gay. And he's like, oh, cool, that's what that is. And it's like, there you go, that's easy, done, simple.
I like this. This is funny. I actually think the likes are going to multiply.
I hope so.
I wonder what the chat think.
I don't know. I've not been looking. I've been slightly paranoid. Hang on, Welsh boys.
Yes. Tablecon says, God help us all, Welsh spies.
Hello, Dr. Peterson. Why are you so young? Oh, do you know what? That's lifted my... I like that. Come on. Thank you, Real Raven 2000.
Real Raven's a great guy. He's the one who does all the music. So if you've seen any of the parodies of like music with Felfop doing the vocals, that's him doing all the music.
Oh,
great guy. He lives in Ireland. He's a German. He lives in Ireland. He's not far from us. So if he wants to go to a hangout or something, real life hangout, he's always invited.
Yeah.
But like so like Wales.
Wales. Viva la Wales.
Viva la Wales. Blech. No, I'm joking. I actually don't have any. You know what? I've got Scottish blood, English blood, Trinidadian blood. I've every Irish blood, but I've got no Welsh in me whatsoever. I have no idea if there's any Welsh family members in my family.
Well, I've had
Isn't
Welsh
that
in me,
weird?
but I haven't got any at the moment.
Hey, double entendres. I love them. Actually, I've noticed LGBT people are very good at that. Really
yeah.
good at that.
Well, because with the stigma of being gay, it's not so much apparent now, but they had to use double entendres and euphemisms and covert codes. Covert codes, blimey, I can do English well.
Covert codes, yeah.
They had to be secret about expressing to one another if they're homosexual or not. When they advertised.
It's like Justin Carr. He does that, and he's always hilarious. Every single joke is funny. I don't know why.
Because one of the things gay men used to do is the way they would hang their keys off of their jeans. Depending which side they would wear, it would say whether they're top or bottom, and then how they're holding them would say, what they're into. And they would do the same with handkerchiefs. If they wore handkerchiefs, which side they wore them on, which would say if they're top or bottom, and then the colors would say what they were into. And yeah, so it'd be quite interesting going around, and you just see a guy with a hanky sticking out his back pocket, and you go, I know what you like. I know what you like. Nobody else would have taken it because they wouldn't know it. Yeah.
It's like what's weird? The best ones are ones you hid in plain sight. So have you heard of Judas Priest?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, the band.
Yeah, Rob Halford, he's gay, and the drummer in the 80s, he there was issues with him, but he was bi as well, which people didn't find out till he had a court case. Let's not get into that. It's more about Rob. He would literally dress up like a leather guy, even though he wasn't like that in his personal life, but he would dress up that way, and that created the whole metal image of leather and studs and all that, and that came from the gay scene.
Yeah, the gay community.
Although really, like, male dominatrixes, whether they're straight or gay, wear leather and those caps anyway. So, but
not in all cases. Some of them do like to wear sharp suits. Get that figure of authority. That's not why I wear sharp suits, by the way.
But yeah, he literally, apart from his mates in the band and other people, I think maybe in the metal community it's as well, they kind of knew, but most people just went over their heads. They didn't realize that this is what he's dressing up as, and also what he's in some songs, not all of them. People think it's every song, but it's not. In some songs, he did talk about the gay community and stuff like that. A lot of his love songs are actually not really specific with who he was singing about. So, and well, there was one called "Victim of Changes" where it talks about a woman who's an alcoholic, but doesn't mean he likes her or anything.
That doesn't specify all the women, there, does it?
No. Morrissey was the same as well, but I don't know if he's bi or gay or straight. Doesn't really matter. I think he says that he likes everything. He just likes humans. He was the same. All his love songs were gender non-specific. But anyway, back to MRM stuff. So one person in the chat called Yobby Axis asked, what do you think about Paul Elam?
Yeah, are we going to specify this to anything in particular? He's a nice guy. I've met him. He's fucking tall. You don't get this from the videos. Yeah, God, he's ginormous. He's a fucking mountain. He's huge. Because I was at the ICMI. Pardon me. I think we discussed this before we went live. The International Conference on Men's Issues last year in London. I was there. Helped work at the event. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant it was. And yeah, he was there. I remember just seeing him sit down. I went over to shake his hand and he stood up. I was standing like this, ready to shake his hand. And then I ended up having to go like this. Like, hello, sir.
He's over 6 foot, isn't he?
He's like 8'12" or something. 8'13" even. But yeah, no, he's a friendly giant. He's so lovable and nice, and his Texan accent really adds to it. And I like his site of voice.
I never knew he had a Texas accent.
Yeah, I think it's Texan or something. I don't know the United States that well, unfortunately.
I know a little bit. I think it's posh Southern, that, isn't it?
But yeah, I like A Voice for Men. They are certainly quite controversial with some of the articles they've uploaded. But it's always been for a good reason. Maybe they're responding to something that was equally vicious, and so they wanted to hold a mirror up to it. But yeah, they've been a very, very good platform for giving men hope, because a lot of these guys who've been through the shit, who've had their kids taken away from them, who have been genitally mutilated, who've had feelings of suicide, etc. It's good for them to be able to go onto a site such as A Voice for Men and see someone up there putting his neck on the line and standing up for them, saying, I understand, I feel for you. because he now does the.
He's giving as good as he gets as well. Let's not forget,
He's-
he's giving as good as he gets.
Well, yeah, because he's sort of taken a step away from a voice for men now, and he's now doing an ear for men, which is
Oh yeah, he
like
is.
a therapy thing where guys phone up and he listens to them and helps them through the stuff because he's a trained therapist. I think if trained psychologist or therapist or something, so he helps them out with
Who's
that.
that other one? Who's the other therapist? Oh, the one who's really good at. Is it Golden? What was he called again?
Oh, Paul Golding.
Is it Tom Golden?
Oh, Tom
Paul
Gold,
Golding. That's it. Oh, what a speech! What a speaker! He's so good. You can listen to him all day. And he made some really good points about the gender empathy gap and how guys just get amazed when you talk to them about that. Just like, I'll take them seriously. Just take their issue seriously.
Yes, well, considering that the state, frankly, doesn't give a flying toss about them, if you've gone to the police still bleeding because your wife just beat the crap out of you, and then they turn around and say, let us never catch her hurting herself hitting you, or else we'll arrest you, they get left with this horrible sense of abandonment. And then when they try to look for services to help them and to find that there's nothing out there, it really breaks their spirit. But then when they can find people who understand, it is great for them. It really does pick up their spirits because they sort of have that twinkle in their eye that says, oh my God, you actually understand.
So
which is nice for them.
One of the things that was interesting that he talked about was our whole research on stress is wrong because dealing with issues, when people talk about that, just talk about it. That's from a very female-centric thing. That's where all the research was. Conversely, stress, fight or flight is actually a male thing apparently, and with women it's completely different. But I forgot what he said it was. It was either nurture or
well, they do have a fight or flight response, but it's not as strong as ours. Ours is fight or flight because where we evolved to be producers, resource provisioners, we had to go out and obviously hunt animals, and so that's why that developed. But because the women stayed behind at the camps, raising the young, socializing with one another, their threats were more social threats, and so they evolved tend and befriend. Which is such that if they were faced with a social threat, they, tend the wounds, they understand the person, they befriend them and get to work with them and use empathy. So that's what they evolved. And yeah, you're right. Our research and understanding of stress and male mental health and male way of thinking is completely fucked. We don't understand the fact, well, MRAs do understand, but the broader psychological group doesn't understand that men have a different language when it comes to stress, when it comes to pain and emotion. We have different words that we use. We express it differently. The way we bond, the way we open up is very different. And because people don't understand this, when we then use our methods, it gets misinterpreted by everybody else, and then we get blamed again. But there are people who are doing really good work. John Barry at the Male Psychology Network doing great work to get male psychology recognized by the BPS, because the BPS has already publicly stated that so much of their therapy techniques don't work on men because all the research is on women. All their training is with women. It uses female-centric mechanisms. If you bring a woman into a room, sit down on the sofa and say, can you talk about how you feel? She could do it all day long. But if you bring a guy in, he can't do it. He needs to have these bonding moments. He needs to work with you. He needs to use action and sort of work with you to get close with you. There was a great paper by the Movember Foundation where they looked into male mental health and getting men to open up. And they found that helping to affirm the male identity, recognizing the positive work that they do, using action-based therapy, and it's not even using the word therapy, even calling it coaching, helped guys to feel comfortable as men and to speak as men about their problems. Because guys do talk about their problems. They like to treat us like we just keep everything in, and our fragile masculinity, our frail male ego can't talk. But have you ever seen guys at the pub? They always sit around and they talk about everything. They'll talk, if they were sexually abused as children, they'll talk about how the miss is difficult. They talk how they can't get it up. They talk about everything, any male issue that you think is deep and personal that they would struggle to talk about. You give them a few points, you sit with them, and you could even be in the locker room after having played football with them. They'll open up. It's because we can't give them these positive male environments that we can't get them to talk, and then we still blame them anyway. Our knowledge, our understanding of men is fucked. And one of the worst things about it is something called normal male alexithymia, which alexithymia is the inability to express and find words for emotions. And it is true that the male vocabulary for expressing emotions is smaller than the female vocabulary, But it's because it's different, and because we can't understand the way men are speaking about their feelings, we've pathologized them to say, you're actually sick and can't express emotions because you're broken and faulty. We're going to have to fix that as well and change the way you express yourself, because we can't listen to them. It's not that men can't talk, it's that society and therapists can't listen. They can't understand. And then men are getting blamed for it again.
It's weird because when you talk about the things that you're all right.
Yeah, that was quite a big let out of steam, that was. Wow. Anyway.
Hey, that's what I'm good. That's what I try to do with these conversations. Get everything out. Trying to be a good interviewee. So yeah, with things in the pub and stuff like that, we've all had it. We've all had these heart to hearts.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you've seen it happen. They're completely like random and spontaneous. It happens. You just chat, and then like it happens, and you with your mates, and you're all hugging, or you're crying, or you. Well, I don't really cry. I cry when I get really, really drunk, but usually I don't remember it the following day.
If I remember correctly, when it comes to crying, I think statistically women cry 4 times as often as men do. I can't remember where that
only because of the physical things, isn't it? Because we've got smaller ducts, they've got bigger ones, so it comes out more.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Considering they use them more, it would mean they'd evolve to be bigger.
Yeah. It probably explains why they have bigger eyes than us on average.
Oh, do they as well?
Also, Real Raven says I think. Well, they seem to have bigger eyes. I don't know.
They certainly have.
Like,
sorry, you go first.
I was just thinking because we've evolved to like things that are cute and cuddly, right? All humans to some extent, right? So that's why, like today, I saw a picture of a fox cub, right? This is an example, and it was in a chicken den. It sneaked into a chicken den, didn't harm any of the chickens, and just fell asleep. And the farmer found it the next day, and I'm just like, right? you have that response to something like that, and I think humans have evolved the same way. Like you look at a kid, even if you don't like kids, sometimes you get go, it's that response, that instinctual response. And I think in many ways, like maybe women have evolved something similar to attract people, maybe, or it just happens to be that way. I don't know. Nice big eyes and youthful features. I don't know.
Yeah, Christ!
There's something about that. I can't really confirm if it's true or not.
I know what you're getting at, and there was this is going to annoy me. There was a word for it, but yeah, women with their aesthetics when it comes to attracting a mate, the way they've developed is to have baby-like features. So they have
that's it.
More light, smoother skin, bigger eyes, makes them look younger because youthfulness implies fertility. That's why they also got the hourglass figure. Not all of them, but it sort of works that way. And they sort of do look younger because it is to attract men as mates. And I read this interesting hypothesis in a paper, and I quite like it. And also don't at the same time because of the implications of it. But it says when it comes to relationships, we look for relationships where we can find someone who can both be a parent to us and a child for us. And we have that sort of switching between the two. So sometimes I'll parent you and sometimes you'll parent me, and we'll have that toing and froing. And I can certainly imagine that definitely taking place in relationships. And, the guy being a physical parent, doing the caring and hard work and stuff, and the wife or the female being an emotional parent, providing the love in return. And then that also explains a little bit of the not really domination and submissiveness, but why one would take the lead sometimes and the other would take the lead. But again, I don't like the implications, the fact that it means that we look for traits in our partner that remind us of children or implies childness.
Or your parents.
Or your parents. That again I don't like, but I can understand where that comes from, because we as children we look to see what we see in the relationships between our parents, and we use that to judge what to expect in a relationship when we're older, which is why children of abuse who saw their parents fighting each other, irrespective whether they were abused themselves, if they see their parents fight, it gets burned into them. Oh, that's what to expect in a relationship. So they grow up and then they beat their partners. It's any person who's ever perpetrated domestic abuse, ask them about their childhood, and there's abuse there. Erin Pizzey knew this back in the 70s. She said there's no point blaming abusers, there's no point attacking them. You're better off taking a therapeutic approach and helping them, because chances are they got issues of themselves. children of abuse, they need to be helped because they just get locked in this cycle of abuse. And it's better to look at domestic abuse not as intimate partner violence per se, but as intergenerational violence, because it just does pass through the lineage.
Yeah, well, it is, and it's interesting that they. But the thing is, the establishment, the feminists, we can't be having that. It has to be one thing only. The men, it's their fault. They're the ones that are causing all this. The patriarchy. Also, as an aside, this is off topic, but Rhea Raven says he's 6'4", but he only dates midgets.
Well, I'm only 6 foot, so for him, I'd be a midget.
You're well taller than me, but you don't look it.
Hashtag Daddy Real Raven. And also, Table Kun found the word for us, neoteny, which is looking for youthfulness in your partner.
I can't believe that you are 6 foot, and even you were towered over by Paul Elam. Jesus.
Yeah, Paul Elam is ginormous. I'm really jealous of him for that, because in my family, I'm actually short.
Really?
So I'm like, yeah. My younger sibling, he's 17. And he's like 6'5".
Jesus.
And when he had his growth spurt, the bastard, he went from like being 5 foot to 6'5", like in a couple of weeks. And it's like I saw him like before one term at university, shook his hand, "Hi, you're short and fat." And I came back and he was bloody tall and slender. I'm like, you fucking cunt. God, that annoyed. No, because I was
had my
always
growth
the tall
spurt
and
at
handsome
12.
one, and then sorry, yes?
I had my growth spurt when I was about 12 and a half. And then I think I mean, apparently I've grown a bit since I was 14, a little bit, but I used to be like amongst the middle height of my age group for ages. Then I went to college and uni and I realized I'm actually quite small, but I've grown apparently. I'm now 5'8.5" or 9. I don't know. I'm actually one of the tallest in my family, which is crazy.
Really?
It's yeah, like they're all 5'8" or below, apart from my cousin. No, actually, I've got 3 cousins who are about 5'11" up. Then there's me and my dad, and then my uncle. We're all the tallest ones. Like, it's weird how small my family is. But then again, they used to be the average height years ago. So
if you want, I mean, not that I'm saying I do, but I mean, there are some people out there. I don't know them. Not saying that I do know them, but there are some people out there who are chicken farmers that illicitly feed growth hormone to their chickens to help them grow. I mean, not that I know them, but I could, something could fall off the back of a lorry, feed you some growth hormones and a bit of anabolic androgenic steroids. I can't speak. And then we could help you.
I can actually make an adult grow. I'm only 20. I'm 23. I can't grow.
If we've got
really
growth hormones, or if they don't work, we can practice some amateur neurology, and I could fire some UV radiation at your pituitary gland, give it a small, just a minute little tumor, which would, make you secrete growth hormones, and you'll fly up. We would then have to
I don't know
afterwards. I mean, it is slightly risky because your pituitary is like right in the middle of your brain, like in the center underneath.
Jesus,
so
no way.
It's quite invasive, but I do have a steady hand, so if you want to.
Is this real? Do people do this? I'm fine with my height, to be fair.
I don't know if people do this, but you could do, because your pituitary gland does monitor and regulate growth. So, I mean, if you were, but then again, it does regulate so many other hormonal functions. You could just completely fuck yourself up.
Yeah, my voice could get deeper. Now that would be interesting. But then again, that will happen anyway. Every man's voice deepens. So even as they get older, doesn't just get deep at 15, 16. Continues, man. If you look at any singer, they always most of them tend to get deeper. God damn, that's like Gattaca. Do you remember in Gattaca where he gets his height increased and it hurts him? Like they did something to his legs or something, and he couldn't move for like 24 hours.
But imagine that could be the future. Just saying, I'm not tall enough, and then you get blasted or get given a little bit of a, a nice little injection, and then you're taller.
And the thing is, you can't regulate it. So you wouldn't. Say if you want to be 5'11" rather than 5'9", you might end up being 6'1". So now you're like, oh great, now I'm 6'1".
And then you'd be too tall to ride all the cool rides at the roller coaster. The theme park.
Yeah, and then because then also I think in some ways a lot of the clothes when it comes to sizes they overlap. So I'm a medium in most things, or 28, 32. Some guys who are a bit taller than me could wear those clothes and fit quite well. But if I say have those therapies, and I end up going a little bit too tall than I want, then I'm like, oh shit. Too tall, great. And you can't shrink someone, can you? Or can you? Can you shrink
I
someone?
think you can. I don't know how. I've never tried it.
Because we shrink in real life, don't we?
Over time, yeah, you do age as your body gets weaker and you don't produce as many cells. Or what you could do actually is we could take you up into space for a month, and your spine will just naturally stretch, and we could just put like some filler in between your vertebrae, and then you'll stay like an inch or two taller.
That's probably safer. That's safer than getting a tumor.
It'd be like a reverse lumbar puncture. Instead of taking fluid out, we just put fluid in, and it's just like styrofoam, or like, you know, like that filler foam that builders use, you know, like the insulation foam. Just put some of that in between your spine. You know,
Fake cartilage.
There being any, I can't imagine there being any adverse health effects. And then you just come back and that's it at all.
I mean, I've got the frame to handle a taller frame. I mean, I'm quite skinny. I've got broad shoulders. I would say that's my legs are quite long actually. So I used to run. Quite a lot.
Running is good for your posture. Yeah, it does help keep you tall. I don't run because you can probably tell from my gut, but
I have a metabolism which keeps my gut flat at the moment.
You're lucky. You're still young.
What? How old are you?
Don't ask a lady how old she is.
Oh, well, come on. Just because you're bi doesn't mean you're a lady.
I can identify as whatever I want.
Oh yeah, I just
assumed how it is nowadays. You did.
Oh.
You did. No, I am 24 years young. 24 years.
Oh, come
young.
on. You're only a year older than me.
Hey, you're still younger than me, though. You're still young.
Well, are you 93 or 92?
I'm a 92, baby.
Oh, god damn it. Because then you'd have no excuse.
No, unfortunately, I just clipped it in.
So anyway, let's see how long we've been going before I ask you this question and what I'd like to know.
56 minutes.
We've been going 56 minutes. Let's talk about circumcision, because some people still can't seem to see the issue with both, you know, with one, let alone both, right? Like most people in the world, well, in the West, can accept that female circumcision is awful. It's barbaric. It adversely affects them in many ways. You just ask Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She went through it, didn't she?
Yeah, she was as a child, yeah.
Yeah, so like everyone can accept that's bad. Then there's adverse health effects. But with male circumcision, people can't seem to see that. And the fact that the foreskin is there for a reason, and the fact that some cultures have these just utterly barbaric ways of circumcising, like with babies, especially in the Jewish faith, there's some horrible stuff that just makes me, I'm not easily wincible, but when I hear about that old way they do it, when they literally bite it off and spit it, oh god.
Yeah, that's not very nice. But
so
then,
explain to people why it's so bad. That's what I want to know. And also
yeah, why it's so bad? Well, firstly, it's a completely unnecessary, hopelessly barbaric, invasive surgery where we remove, well, I don't say, where it's a healthy piece of skin that is designed for the protection of soft flesh is forcibly removed against the consent and wishes of this young child. And it's good to imagine the foreskin like the eyelid in the way that it keeps the glands of the penis moist and protected.
Moist,
favorite word. But what most people don't know is that when you're young, your foreskin is actually fused to the head of the penis, very much like your nail is fused to the nail bed. So you can imagine how painful it must be to rip the nail out of your finger. Well, that's how it's fused to the penis. And so when they, sorry, this is going to get a bit graphic, but when they remove it, not only do they cut straight in, and I mean, they just get scissors and just straight into the foreskin. And I've torn my frenulum during sex, and that fucking hurt. I can only imagine.
Oh, heard that, yeah.
I can only imagine what it must be like to be, you know, scissored through. But yeah, what they do is, yeah, they scissor and they get like a stunt and they push it through, and then they use that little metal rod and just spin it around the penis to break the fusing between the skin and the head of the penis. Well, that's the surgical way. There's also the way where they wrap a piece of string around it and just let it die of lack of blood, and then when it falls off, they take off. But that one is horrendous because the flesh can go necrotic and you can get like blood disorders, and that can give you septicemia and you can Yeah, so that's how they move it, and they do so for a variety of reasons. In the US, they do it for two, well, three really. Cleanliness and health benefits, that's the one they love pushing. They say it protects you from HIV, even though there's absolutely no fucking evidence. It doesn't. No, the evidence they provide is a really shady study from Africa that says, hey, some guys got circumcised and we let them go, and some guys didn't. And then we brought them back. The guys who were circumcised, less of them had AIDS than the ones who were, uncut. Oh, look at that. It means that, circumcision prevents AIDS.
I don't believe that. The foreskin is there to prevent disease.
Well, you've got to think about this. These guys who just had their foreskin removed, there is no fucking way they're going out shagging when their dick is still pissing blood. I mean, when my frenulum ripped, I didn't have sex for 2 fucking weeks because it hurt so much. I couldn't even beat it off. That's how much it hurt. And so I can't imagine that these guys who had just been fucking circumcised in Africa, not exactly the cleanest of all places, and then they'd be like, yeah, let's just go and have lots of unprotected sex. No.
They wouldn't even be horny, I reckon. They'd be too in pain.
Yeah. But then if we're going to accept that as evidence, there's an equally shady study from Iraq, I believe it's from, which found that women who were circumcised, who had the clitoral hood removed, and in some cases the clitoris, they were less likely to get sexually transmitted diseases. And I mean, sure, the study itself is also shady, but I mean, if we're going to accept that crap one from Africa, we might as well accept the crap one from the Middle East. We're going to hold them to the same standard.
We should, and let's not forget that even after you've done it, and these, let's say that they haven't botched the operation like what happened with one guy.
Every single circumcision is a botched operation.
It is. Well, you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, I know what I mean.
A particular one. Oh, that internet aristocrat, Mr. Mitteka, talked about. Do you remember? This doctor who's the first one to say that there is no such thing as gender or sex, or there's more than. It's not a binary.
Oh, you are talking about Dr. John Money and his case.
Yes, John Money.
Yes, David, or whatever the guy was called. No, his case is a bit more complicated because, his botched circumcision was when they wrapped the electric wire around and turned up the electricity too high and accidentally burnt off his entire penis. And then they decided, hey, do you know what would be a really good idea? It's the 60s and, gender is a lie. So let's just raise it up as a girl. Except, unfortunately, because they were twins and they already had mental conditions, as was evidenced by the fact that the other twin grew up and had schizophrenia.
Wow.
Yeah, the other one had schizophrenia. Very few people talk about that. But yeah, they turned him into a girl.
Was it a brother, or was it two brothers, or one brother, one sister?
Yeah, it was two brothers. It was two brothers in a van, and then the moon crashes into Earth. Sorry, Rick and Morty reference.
Show me what you got.
It was two brothers, and the other brother who had schizophrenia, I think he committed suicide as well. I'm not entirely sure. My knowledge on this is a bit shady, but that case was just absolutely fucked. But I've seen
let's just say none of that ever happens. Your botched operation is not too botched. You've still got issues like one. They can't really. There's a reason why a lot of Americans use lube, because they can't naturally do it.
The Americans have the highest incidence rate of oral sex because the guys don't naturally lubricate. Male penises, obviously male penises, but uncut penises naturally lubricate. They produce their own, fluid, their own mucousy lubrication. Pre-cum. When the foreskin is removed, not entirely pre-cum because, essentially as well. But when the foreskin is removed, it keratinizes and dries out, and it doesn't self-lubricate. And so when it comes to intercourse, because it's dried out, many women experience discomfort. So to alleviate this, they perform oral sex beforehand to wet the penis with their mouth so that it doesn't hurt so much when it goes in.
And that explains why they spit a lot in American porn.
And also, if you watch, when the money shot happens, they do either one of two things. They furiously beat off the head, or they rub the shaft, because on the shaft is the scar, and where the scar tissue is, there's some of the highest sensitivity. Now, depending on the type of circumcision, sometimes underneath where the penis is, where the glands fuse together, and where the foreskin connects, where the frenulum is, there's a little nodule of like skin and nerve cells. If that's still there, that's quite the heavy pleasure center. So sometimes they like to squeeze that as well a bit when they're beating themselves off, but some of them have that removed. And so the only sensitivity they really get is in the scar. And depending how low down the scar was, if it's really low down, then that means that it tightens too much and having erections is too hard because there's not enough skin. I mean, there's no point in them having sex because they have such little stimulation and it hurts so much that many of them, when they do get circumcised, willingly stay asexual because it hurts and they're ashamed of the damage. And I have seen pictures.
Yeah.
Because, what's his name? Tim Hammond. He's an independent researcher on circumcision. And he was at the International Conference on Men's Issues. And
I've heard of him, yeah.
And he held up these pictures of quote unquote botched circumcisions and what the penises look like because he interviewed these guys for the study. And Jesus God above, some of the damage that was done where the surgeons had cut too far, where they'd removed too much flesh, where the penis was wonky because of it. One guy, he had like a huge ring sort of dug all around the middle of his penis where when they burnt it through, they burnt too much and it had gone into his dick. And it was, he would never masturbate and he wouldn't have sex because he was too ashamed of what it looked like.
And they say that's aesthetically pleasing. It's weird, like there's a cultural difference. Like over here, nobody cares. Like I've never been with a girl who cared at all. But if I went to America, they probably would. But
well, it depends which state because it does vary state by state. Some states
True.
are
and by ethnicity.
And by
ethnicity, like Hispanics and blacks don't seem to get so circumcised, do they? I think it's just Hispanics mainly who don't. They just don't bother. I think.
I don't know about ethnicity because I know that
I have heard, yeah.
They used to use circumcision, genital mutilation as a punishment against the blacks during the slave era. As a way of reprimanding them and as a way of controlling their sexuality. And they used to recommend in, what's his name? John Harvey Kellogg's book, Plain Facts for the Old and Young, because that's not an ominous fucking title. He said, was it him? Or was it Hutchinson? Oh, crikey. But one of them said that circumcision stops black men from raping white women. That's why we need to circumcise. And I was like, oh, that's what they used to teach, 150 odd years ago. And that was the, doctrine. That was because they believed that circumcision had all these amazing health effects. One of them being it stopped them from raping. And also, it prevented tetanus and tuberculosis, cholera. I'm trying to find some more of the stuff it claimed to prevent. But yeah, John Harvey Kellogg, remember that name because he was a fucking nutter.
Is this the same Kellogg that created the cereal? Or is this a different Kellogg?
Which is, same guy. And the reason he created cornflakes was because it was so bland and tasteless. The neutrality of it would calm sexual urges. So you'll eat it in the morning as like a tonic to prevent you from getting randy throughout the day.
Well, that didn't work.
No, it didn't. So he also had the idea of, he believed yogurt to have a purifying effect. So he recommended yogurt enemas. These were some of his lighter therapies. Some other of his therapies was using carbolic acid on the clitoris of young girls to stop them masturbating. He would also stitch up the foreskin of people because when you then get an erection, there'd be no space for it to go and the pain would be unbearable. He also recommended when performing circumcision to not use anesthetic because he said the pain will have a salutary effect and will prevent masturbation.
Yeah. It's just, and they say there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, I saw a website once that lists all the side effects, and it's amazing what it causes. All this is scientifically proven, and people still say, "Oh, nothing happens," but clearly something happens.
It's mass ignorance because the circumcision industry.
It is an industry.
You make so much money. Over here in the UK, you could charge £75 to £300 for it. And the law is so great because they've got this huge campaign to prevent FGM, but of course they don't give a fuck about MGM. But the British law, it is illegal to genitally mutilate your dog. You'll go to prison if you circumcise your dog, but if you circumcise your baby boy, let's celebrate. It's your decision to get your child circumcised.
Is it what? So even if you do it yourself, you can get away
there have
with it.
been cases.
Is that what you're saying? If you were to do that.
Not necessarily yourself, but there have been cases where they've brought in questionable religious figures who've then done these circumcisions, and they've been sort of not really let off, but given like a slight slap on the wrist. Because
don't do that again.
Circumcision went wrong. Yeah.
I'm just glad it's not that big of a thing over here. I'm glad it isn't.
Well, because you can actually thank the NHS for it, because during the 50s, because it did used to be not as popular as it was in the States, but it was a bit more popular because the same puritanical thought that promoted it in the US 150 years ago was also in effect over here. But the NHS came along and they had to do a huge cost-benefit analysis of all the surgeries and procedures they would offer. And when they came to circumcision, they said, well, the evidence, quite frankly, isn't strong enough to warrant us paying for the surgery. If you want to get it done privately or pay for it yourself, you can, but we're not going to do it on the NHS. And that single decision essentially killed circumcision in the UK. So I'm grateful for that. Very grateful.
Could you just repeat that? It killed what? You kind of cut out a bit for me then.
Oh, yeah. So the NHS, they did their cost benefit analysis, said, the costs outweigh the benefits. So we're not going to offer circumcision on the NHS. And it was that decision back in the 50s that killed circumcision here in the UK because people just didn't want to pay for it.
Thank God.
So yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
It seems like universal healthcare. Universal healthcare can end circumcision.
Yeah,
well, at least over here it did.
But yeah, there was a growing movement over in the US.
So anyway, yeah. Growing movement to stop it. Anyway, universal healthcare as well. Yeah. Anyway, I think we might have to end it there. We've gone. It's an hour and 10 minutes, and in the chat they ended up discussing the name Maynard for some reason, and that ended up with a Tool reference. Maynard Keenan. I think Trey of Prague would have liked that.
Do you not want to briefly discuss the wonderful Bill Nye? Or do you want to leave it for another time?
Oh yes, we forgot. We'll do that. Oh, but first, you've got one of my subs called Christy, who's disagreeing with you about the circumcision. I think was she? Yeah, she says, "Hi, there's a few things here. Hi, I'm a female right here, and having a foreskin doesn't automatically mean, oh, hey, no oral or lube necessary. It isn't that useful." And then she says, so if the UK has a fuck all circumcision and Europe doesn't and Australia doesn't, why are you ranting about it, fucking MRAs? Go.
Well, I like a nice straw man. I didn't say we have fuck all circumcision over here. We don't actually know entirely how many people are genitally mutilated because the numbers aren't recorded when they are circumcised. But from surveys and such, it's estimated between 10 and 14%. And when I first heard that statistic, I did question it. I didn't believe it myself, but when I started talking to people about it, and so many people who I've been friends with and who I knew and just assumed were uncut were then like, oh yeah, I'm circumcised. So that for me lends some validity to the idea that somewhere between 10 and 14% of UK men are circumcised. And then her original point about not needing lube, well, it's true. The woman can get wet enough to such the point that it's not needed, but it still means that the penis doesn't self-lubricate. And so whilst it can still continue with sex, it is better to have the lubrication, which the female often provides through giving oral sex.
Anyway, so what was she called? Rachel Bloom? Actually, why not just have both? Why not both, to quote the Food advert? Why not both? Anyway, so what was she called? Rachel Bloom?
Rachel Bloom, yes. Oh,
I forgot her name. I thought it was something else, like Karen or something. Oh. Press F for respects, chat. Press F for respects.
Yeah, what happened to her? Oh, God. So, do you want to give a brief description on the Bill Nye thing, or do most people, are they mostly aware of it?
You do it, because I didn't do a video on it. You can do it.
So, well, for those who don't know, I'm assuming most people do, on the Bill Nye Saves the World Netflix show, there's a little segment, a song by Rachel Bloom to talk about I don't really know what it's supposed to talk about because it discussed things such as sexuality and gender identity and what kind of sexual things you want to get up to.
We're here to lament her. We're here to lament from 5 years ago when she was this raunchy, fiery, just goddess, and now she's some weird retro 80s looking SJW.
Yes,
like she was the figure of your wet dreams, and now she's gonna make you dry instead.
Yeah. So for those who have seen the Bill Nye skit, will know just exactly how fucking terrible it is. You know, my vagina has its own voice. Sometimes I do a voice for my vagina. Please don't tell me I'm the one who does that. And it's like, Jesus Christ, this is so cringy. But then you go back, to the video. Not that I've watched it hundreds of times, but there is a video called "You Can Touch My Boobies," and the videos, it's a song, a comedy song, which takes place inside a 12-year-old boy's mind, so it's questionable. But he's sitting in class and he's looking at his teacher and he's falling asleep, but he's looking at her and he's looking at her with eyes of lust. And as he falls asleep, it's his dream of having a sexy dream of her. So if you remove the 12-year-old boy element, the rest of the thing is fine, because to say she's attractive is a bit of an understatement, and she knows how to work it. She's got all these dancers in who also know how to work it, and it does take, it does sort of parody young people's perceptions of sex and how they don't understand anything. So there's one point where she's holding a tampon, she's using it to masturbate with a condom in it. It's like it's stuff that's stupid and doesn't make sense, but it's funny. But you've got these hot women who are dancing and grinding against each other, and it's brilliant. And you think this woman is fantastic.
You got enamored with her. You fell in love.
I did. Oh my god. Oh. It's getting a bit warm in here now. Fuck it.
It did get quite warm.
But yes, it's brilliant. And then you compare this to My Sex Junk, which is where she's advocating giving random people handies, having sex stews, which basically, as she described a couple of lines earlier in the song, involves pissing and shitting in people, giving them a top off. And it's like, and then they were saying there's nothing taboo about it, and then having these great big sex parties that involve such things, and then we're not supposed to look down on this, even though we're shitting and pissing in and all over each other, which is fucking...
It's weird, though, because they did look down on Trump allegedly doing it, which is interesting.
Well, he does pooping and peeing stuff, does he?
Well, allegedly. There was like a... Remember that whole golden showers thing?
No.
Oh, there's a whole rumour about him allegedly having prostitutes piss on him, but it wasn't actually. I think what happened was the original story was somebody hired somebody to piss in his bed or something, so he ordered someone to piss in somebody else's bed, and that Chinese whispers he likes golden showers, water sports.
Okay.
But it's unsubstantiated, and people mocked him for it, and it's like that never happened.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. But yeah, going back to the Bill Nye thing, it just the message they were trying to give, which according to Bill Nye is exactly the right message. Great job. But
him in that video was so funny. He's just like, I'm getting well into it. Whoa.
Yeah, he's using a deck system that's not even plugged in, and none of it's on in the match. It's just a fucking.
She was singing. She was singing though.
Oh yeah, she was definitely singing. You could tell by the fact that she was out of breath and was struggling to keep up. But fair play.
That's why you mime.
That is why you mime. But yeah, I didn't understand what the message was and what who they were trying to espouse this message to, because the theme, the layout of the show seemed to be such that it was designed to be a kids show. DJ Seahorse and the fanciful lights and the bright colors and the
DJ Seahorse.
Yeah, DJ Seahorse. And then these sort of weird musical numbers. But then the content.
She was a looker if you get past the Seahorse bit.
Well, I was too busy, reminiscing about the beauty that used to be Rachel Bloom. I know.
You think the English are bad at this kind of stuff? The Welsh are even worse. It's so hot! It's so hot in here. Oh.
Wait, I'm not Welsh.
You're not?
No, I'm English. I lived in Wales whilst I was at uni.
Oh right. Did you meet Spino there?
Yeah. No, not whilst I was. Wait, did I meet him whilst I was at uni, or did I meet him after I came back? Yeah, I did meet him over there.
Because there is overlap people with accents. Some Welsh people have English accents. Some English people have Welsh accents on the borders.
Yeah, it depends where you live, like in Hereford or wherever. If you live quite close, you can get the mix. Yeah, no.
It's usually a valley. All of them go valleys, even English ones.
Good old valleys, yeah. Don't go up there; they're a bit weird there.
Sheepshaggers.
Yeah. Oof. Anyway, I can't understand who it was going for, because the setup seemed to be for kids, but then the message was not kid friendly, and it's on Netflix. It says it's for young adults, but it was so patronizing and condescending. I mean, the whole thing was just a mess.
The original Bill Nye show that was for kids, but they did it in a mature way in which kids weren't condescended to, and in fact, it was very, very well shot. The production standards were very good. It's one of those late 80s, early 90s things where you can see where they put a budget behind it, and it looks zany and fresh and exciting. This one just looks tacky.
Yeah, well, it feels rushed, and overall it was just a mess. And considering the talent they brought in, it really just confused me how Bill and I used to be great.
Hmm.
Rachel Bloom used to be great, and then this happens. Like, what is going on in the world? You know, it just
Social justice, man. It's
Yeah.
like a virus. Like seriously, I remember once I looked at somebody's. Oh, this sounds weird. Anyway, so I know somebody who went to uni, and she hasn't actually changed her appearance at all, really. But her friends did. I don't know why I got interested, because this was when I started getting interested in this stuff, and I thought, well, I've seen a few memes where people have completely radically changed, not only their views but even what they look like. So I thought, well, let's see what these people, if I can, look like before uni. And you see what they look like at uni, weird hairstyles and well, clothes are clothes, doesn't really matter, but you know, they look like SJWs. Then I looked pre-uni and they just look like normal people, like normies.
yeah.
And
Well,
I'm thinking,
because
what went wrong? It's a uniform. They've appropriated, in my opinion, this is my hypothesis. They've like the skinheads got appropriated by the right wing, well, far right. The far left have appropriated alternative culture, not metal culture yet, but the fashion of that. You know, alt girls and alt guys, stuff like that.
they've done
That's
it. And
where all the hair comes from, and the tattoos and the clothes. They've appropriated that.
yeah, they've done that, and they've taken it to the extreme. And also what they've done is they've activated a very old mechanism that pretty much loads of species use, which is, if I can pronounce it correctly, aposematism, which is where you present yourself in a colorful way to express that you're poisonous and not worth preying on. You know, like frogs do it, poisonous frogs, they're really bright colors to show that they're venomous and poisonous and to leave them alone. That's what these people have done. They've put themselves in this way. They've deliberately made themselves hopelessly unattractive, quite hideously so, to advertise to us, regular, normal, sane society, to advertise that they're poisonous, that they're a threat, that they're not worth going near. And it's true. You go near them and they go insane and they scream, "Yeah, rape culture, you're staring me." Yeah. You know?
Although there's some who don't look like that. Like, and then you find...
Yeah, but they're the ones who are a bit more sensible, because the idiots on the ground who have really been enamored and taken in by this hateful Marxist ideology that they're oppressed and that they need to engage in class warfare and dismantle the oppressors and attack the bourgeoisie. Yeah, they will do. They're dressing up for war. They're dressing up to show they're poisonous. But the really smart ones who are going to work in the system and instead use the system for themselves, they don't do this. They want to blend in, because they realize that you know, uniting and ruling and controlling the enemy from within is so much better than just being a loudmouth, crazy, dressed up retard on the outskirts, because you don't get anywhere like that.
Like Big Red.
Yeah,
I'm reading, fuckface.
Yeah, you take her and her understanding of feminism and compare it to the understanding of feminists in power, and whilst they're both misandrists, the way she presents it is starkly different to the, you know, say, National Organization of Women do.
Or in the Red Pill, as she was in, the one with, is it Miss Magazine?
Oh yeah, Catherine Spiller.
Was it Vogue? I can't remember what it
Miss
was.
Magazine, the Feminist Majority, or whatever it's called. Yeah.
She was worse than Big Red, actually. Big Red is just Big Red. Take it or leave it, right? She runs a corporation. She's famous. She's rich. She's successful. And she harbors these prejudiced views. I'm just thinking, wow, if she has a partner or kids, especially if they're boys, I feel for them, because I don't know how you can have kids who are just kids in general or partners and have these prejudiced views. Like it's like who else? Franny, isn't it? Francesca Ramsey. She's in an interracial relationship, but has these prejudiced views against other races, specifically white people, and also has misgivings about having mixed race kids. And I'm like,
who's Francesca Ramsey? I don't know who this person is.
MTV Decoded. If you've ever seen Andy Warski, a lot of his videos are about.
I think I've seen her. Yeah, I know the person.
Yeah, I've got some videos on her. So, yeah, she did a video where she was complaining about how people were talking about, oh, you and your husband, you're gonna have mixed race kids. It's gonna be so good, right? You know, they're so cute, because you know, mixed race kids are cute. All kids are cute, but you know what I mean. And she was like,
some kids are fuck ugly.
Oh, and you know what I mean. But like, you know, as a rule, they tend to be cute. So she was saying, oh, you're only saying this because you want my blackness to be diluted by his whiteness. You want them to look more white. That's why you want me to have kids with him. And we're thinking, What? Nobody's saying that. They're just they want to see cute babies running around. I think. I mean, you don't have to have kids. I'm not saying you have to have them. They're like imagining what your kids could look like. I mean, they never, like I say, you know, the curly hair and all that. So immediately the idea that they don't want blackness is ridiculous. But even then, anyone can have curly hair. But it's like,
well, some of them do.
She contradicts herself.
Yeah, well, some of them do follow their doctrine to the limits, because there was that feminist scholar who said she wasn't going to have kids because she knew the kids were going to be white and she didn't want to continue white privilege. But some of them also then go ahead to engage in sex selective abortion. So they'll abort the baby if they find out it's a boy. And some of them also realize that whilst they hate men, they understand that men pay the vast majority of taxes and do the vast majority of hours at work. And so they don't want to, you know, leave men entirely be gone from them and to, you know, sever all ties. They want to keep men and use them as tools of production. That's what they want to see men as. Who was it? Andrea Dworkin, who said she wants to see a man beat into a bloody pulp with a high heel.
Yeah, that was her. Yeah,
that's what they want to see. But they also want the man to be useful. Because I think Germaine Greer then said she wanted a similar sort of thing. But the problem was they took so much dignity away from men that they're not useful anymore. So that's what they want us to be. So they will happily get pregnant by these men and then just use them for child support and then use them for income and alimony, and then sponge off the state, because the state incentivizes such action. So they're not entirely going to leave men. They just want to use them for.
And Germaine Greer, she's well. Have you ever heard of one of her books where she has like loads of photography and it gets quite lewd of 14-year-old boys or maybe 16? Have you heard of that book?
Yeah. She said that the young male form was quite beautiful or something. Yeah, she had some interesting comments about young boys.
Yeah, she's either a hemophiliac or a paedophile. I don't know where the rabbit hole goes with that one, but yeah, she's not all there, and she's considered this pillar of bloody thought in the West. And I'm just thinking, no, she's a prejudiced degenerate. She doesn't like trans people. I mean, well, actually, no. Maybe she doesn't not like them, but she doesn't consider them to be part of some feminist thing or whatever it was. I can't remember. She's kind of a TERF, isn't she? But she literally excludes them. But I don't think she hates them.
She said,
I think I might have been strawmanning her.
No, you are kind of close, because she got banned from Cardiff University, or no platformed as the term is, because she said that there's more to being a woman than just putting on a dress and wearing makeup or something to that effect. And that's what got her no platform, because, well, she is right there. You can't just, I can't just put on a dress, put on a bit of makeup and wear some perfume and there you go, I'm a woman. There's so much more to the identity and to the biology. But that's what she said. And that's why she's been labeled as this transphobe, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think she is. I think she just doesn't see them as part of the feminist cause or something. I don't know. And I'm just thinking, all these people come up with these crazy, like, prejudiced shit, and they wonder why MGTOW exists, and then they get angry about MGTOW existing. It's like, well, this is what you want. This is what you're getting, mate. When you exclude men, when you tell them that they are nothing more than just production things, and their money is all that matters to you, and you're telling them that this is what women want, when it's not true. I think most women don't view men like that, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think most women are like Germaine Greer or any of that lot. I think they quite like guys.
No, yeah, the majority of women overwhelmingly are regular people, as we see from take the Fawcett Society or Fawcett Foundation, whatever they're called, how they did this poll finding out how many people are feminists, and like 7% of people are feminists, to which they interpreted that meaning that we're a nation of hidden feminists, which is just complete bullshit. But yeah, the majority of women are just regular women who, have normal views of, gender relations. They have normal views of men. And dare I say, quite a few of them would identify as feminists, simply because out of ignorance, they just believe that feminism is equality, because that's what they've been taught. But yeah, they are just normal women. And these radical misandrist feminists, whilst that is still true feminism, they're the feminists in power. They're the active feminist machine. So that's sort of the difference here, because, they are in that sort of ivory tower up here, and then you've got the regular women who are completely different.
So anyway, I think it's fine. Oh, I'm a tangent master, me. So anyway, I think that's the end of it. We're going to end it there, people. If you want to go subscribe to Jordan at the Screen, link down below. Also, I need to get your blog as well. So what do I type in to put that in?
Thescreen.me.
Thing. Screen.me. .me.
Yeah, .me, because I'm quite narcissistic.
Oh, I love your little thumbnails here. You look quite crazy. They're better than mine though. I can't do thumbnails. I hate thumbnails. They're the worst part of the bloody YouTube thing.
Really? I quite
Yeah,
like
I
it.
hate them. I just prefer oh my god! Hang on, sorry. I'll tell people in a minute. But yeah, I'm going to put this in the description for everyone to click on and have a read. Is it a bit like Wizard of Cars, where he makes videos? Have you heard of Wizard of Cars?
I've heard of him, but I don't know much about him, if I'm going to be entirely honest.
He sometimes reads out his articles and makes a video out of them. Do you do that sometimes?
Yeah, I turn my articles into videos sometimes.
Anyway, to answer this guy's question, I did kind of answer it in the chat, but Vercingetorix, I don't get along with SDA anymore. Or Jack. Oh, some dumb American. I don't know if you've heard of her. She was one of the people. Yeah, she was one of the people who was fighting Angry MGTOW. If you remember that whole drama.
If I'm going to be entirely honest with you, the YouTube community and all their dramas really don't bother me. I just don't care.
It was a pretty bad one. He tried to get Jeff Holiday's kids taken away from him.
Oh, well, that's nice of him.
Like, legit. He used to smoke weed or something, or still does. I don't know if he still does. I don't think he does anymore, but he's been open about his history, and he says, well, that means he must have his kids taken away because there's a danger.
Smoking
or because he got
danger to your kids.
No, and I think Angry MGTOW knows that, but he got butthurt because he got trolled. I mean, admittedly, it was a dick move by SDA to not tell Angry MGTOW that Rob was going to be invited. No, Jeff was going to be invited, and then he's going to get trolled. I think if you're going to troll someone, at least be honest with them. All MGTOW had to do was just be, look, they set me up. How bad is that? Oh, please help me. I think people will be more reciprocal, but instead he got really butthurt and crazy and went over the top. Anyway, people, that's my reasons. I don't get along with her. She doesn't get along with me. I don't get along with any of her friends either. So no streams are happening. Anyway, if you do want to see me on a stream with her, there's some stuff on her channel and there's stuff on my channel. So see you later, guys. Do you want to say anything before you want to go, Jordan?
I just say my usual goodbye, which is toodle pep.
Toodle pip. See you later, guys.